Hello everyone. In this demo, we're going to take a look at writing our first programmer-defined function. So as the comment says here, we'll write a function that will take in a skier's height and the skier's level, whether that's beginner, intermediate, or expert, and the function will return a suggested ski length to that user. The first stage in the process is to come up with an appropriate function declaration. So you have to keep in mind the return type, a good name for your function, and also the parameter list, what the function needs to take as input. The return type we'll use here is double, since we're getting back a numerical value. We probably want a bit of precision to that. We'll say the function is simply just ski length. And for the parameters, we'll need to take in both a skier's height, which is something numerical. We'll go with double for that, and the level. So we have a decision to make there. We could take in beginner, intermediate, and expert as strings. We could also just simply use a character, B, I, or E for beginner, intermediate, or expert. So I think we'll go with character. So we'll say double height and character level. Now keep in mind, you don't need to provide names for these parameters at this point, but it is a good habit, as you're going to see in a moment. We'll just copy paste this declaration line when we define the function, but that is considered optional. The other detail with this stage is that this is a C++ statement, so it has to end in a semicolon. So we've just declared the name ski_length as a function that the main part of the program can now use. So before we actually use the function, let's copy this declaration line, and then we'll paste it below main and write the code for the function definition. So in terms of your workflow, the first thing I usually do is just delete the semicolon, then open up the open and closing braces for defining this function. Now, at the beginning of writing your own functions, a good strategy for ones that return values is to declare a variable of the same type as the return type. So we'll say double length. Go through the process of assigning an appropriate return value, and then return the name of that variable at the end. So you can almost think of this in terms of 3 stages in this function definition. Declare the variable from the same thing as the return type, double length, and then return the name of that variable at the end. Then the middle part of the function is kind of the heart where all the calculations happen. So this would involve a branch. Whatever level the skier is will affect what length ski we pick. Usually for a beginner skier, you definitely want it less than your height. For an intermediate skier, still less than your height. And some expert skiers will actually pick skis that are a little bit bigger than their height. So we'll make a multi-way if-else statement that captures that. We'll say if your level happens to be beginner, which we're going to indicate as capital B, we're going to assign length to B. We'll say 91% of your height or so. Then if your level happens to be intermediate, so else if your level is intermediate, which will be indicated by the character capital I, say the length will be 97% of your height or so. And the last case would be, provided we get valid input, the level here would be expert, so we don't need the condition there. The else would be it's either beginner, intermediate, and if we fall to this case, we get an expert. We'll say the length is a little bit above your height, 103% of your height. So you'll notice this multi-way if-else statement, this branching mechanism, will take the value of the character parameter named level here, determine whether that represents beginner, intermediate, or expert, and then assign the length value that we want. So this should function pretty well. Now, what I'm going to do at this point is just see that my syntax is good. Build and run this, see if I have any syntax errors. So good. All right. Now what we'll do is go to main and just do a simple test case. We'll what's called like hard code some numbers into that. We'll say cout for a skier with a height of, and I'm going to use my own, I'm going to say 173 centimeters or so, and a level of intermediate, some good intermediate skier. A ski length is, and we have some choices here. You can just print out the return value of this function in a cout statement. You could also store the return value in a double variable. But I'm just going to make a call to that function within this cout statement. So I'm going to say, let's make a call to ski length. We'll plug in a height of 173 centimeters, and the level is intermediate. So you'll notice I'm matching the values I'm plugging into the order of the parameter list. It expects a double value and then the character for the level. This 173 that's an integer will actually get promoted up to a double within that function call, so there's no issue there. Again, integers are a subset of the doubles, so totally fine. And then we'll do an NL there. So let's just see that this function does correctly compute a reasonable value now. So for a height of 173 centimeters and a level of intermediate, a ski length is 167.81. That's about what my skis are actually. So it'd be nice to end that with a unit too, which we'll do at the end. So run this again. Nope. You can make this more interactive with the user. So what we'll do is just add now, instead of that one test case, two additional variables that allow the user to input their own height and their own level and allow us to call that function without fixed values that we just had there. So we'll introduce a double variable for, we'll say user height, just to clarify what that is, and then a character variable for user level, and then prompt the user for those. So cout, enter your height, and we'll say in centimeters just to be clear. And another prompt for the level. Cout, enter your skier level, beginner B, immediate I, and expert E, just so it's clear what the function is looking for. And then cin user level. We're not going to user-proof this just in the interest of time, but you could definitely add in the typical loop that validates input, both following user height and user level. But I just want to show how you could use these two variables in main, user height and user level, in a function call. So another style some people will use is they'll declare a variable for the return value. So we'll say double, maybe user ski length, maybe. And what you can do is assign this variable the return value of that function after you call it. So we'll say ski length, and what we'll do is plug in user height and user level, and whatever values those variables have attached to them will be plugged into height and level when the function does its computation. So you notice I'm using different names to be clear, like user height and user level are distinct from these formal parameters, height and level here. These are just placeholders that the values of user height and user level will eventually get filled in for. And then another cout statement. Cout suggested ski length is, and we'll just print out user ski length, centimeters, and end that line there. Now, to be clear, you could have put the function call within this cout statement here as well, and that would work just as well to accomplish this task. But there's different styles. This is just trying to show you a variety of how you can call the function. It doesn't need to be constant values like the first time we did that. That was just purely to test it. You can plug in the name of a variable as long as it has a value attached to it. You can even have more complicated expressions in there as well. So let's see if this user interactivity is working well now. All right, so enter your height. I'm going to use my same 173 centimeters, and I have an intermediate. And suggested ski length is the same, 167.81. Let's run it again. Say, I don't know, you're 170 centimeters tall, and you happen to be a beginner skier. Your ski length should be 154.7. Makes sense. And run the program again. No. So this demo was meant to show you the process of both declaring a function. You have to keep in mind what type of value you're going to get returned, a descriptive name for the function, and what your parameter list should look like. Types are essential when you're declaring, but it's not a bad idea to provide names for them because you must do that when you get to the definition down here. And a good workflow is to just copy and paste that declaration line, delete the semicolon, and then do the actual function definition here. So hope this was helpful.